Hello, hello, hello. Let me tell- I'm on. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. How is everyone tonight? I finally figured out, I think, how to stream to various platforms. So we're going to see how this works tonight. So I'm just going to take a peek over here for one moment. Oh, I see myself. Yay, it worked, it worked, it worked, it worked. Finally, finally, I have mastered this. And well, not mastered, but I've done it. I've gotten on. I've gotten to stream. So, uh, good evening, goddesses, and welcome, welcome, welcome to our Moonday message for June 9th, 2025. And I'm really glad to be with you here tonight. Let's get started. Getting ourselves in the mood for our message. We'll light our candle. And now we will also, as our room candle there, and we can put a little bit of a flame to, this is some of my lady smudge. Actually, no, this is the Yoni Spumoni, which can be used as a smoke, a steam, a bath, put it in your bath, or you can do it like I'm doing it and use it to the same way that you would use sage to clear your area. You can use this kind of uh, this kind of smoke to clear the area. Here we are. And today is June 9th. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the goddess who gives her name to this month. And that is the Roman goddess Juno. But before we get started, let's clear our energy with a deep breath in and out. Another deep breath in and out. Now, this time, breathe deep into your belly, a deep clearing, cleansing breath. And now blow it out with force. And as we do so, we clear any heaviness, any tension, any stress from the day. We release all of that. And just have a little sigh. So, as I said, we want to talk about the goddess who gives her name to this month of the year, and that is the Roman goddess Juno. And Juno is the wife of Jupiter. And basically, they are comparable or comparable with the goddess Hera and the god Zeus. Although I find that the Roman gods and goddesses tend to be a lot less dramatic than the Greek gods and goddesses. For example, we see Hera as queen of the goddesses, and she in herself is as a powerful, powerful goddess. However, um, sometimes she gets so distracted by the antics of her husband Zeus, who is um, way back in the old days we would have called him a philanderer, but now we just know he's a cheater, and not only is he a cheater, he's the kind of god that will, transform himself into different animals or whatever, and trick young maidens into sleeping with him. So he really is um, one heck of a partner to have to deal with. But as for Juno, Jupiter seems to be a much, even though he is kind of the same vibration of a man, um, she seems to handle it with much more equanimity. And, as I've said many times, the gods and goddesses that you find in a particular pantheon often are reflective of the mores and the everyday lives of the citizens under who are worshiping them or venerating them. Okay, and I think this is reflected in these two pantheons because they are very patriarchal. They are, and I, you can hear all these pigs because my family is having some kind of chat and will not hush, but I hope that will not be too bothersome. So, but they're both very patriarchal. That's why you see um, the men who are the ruling gods, Jupiter and Zeus, being so over the top and just doing whatever it is that they please. Okay. So, unfortunately, these goddesses had to deal with that, or maybe they didn't. Maybe that's what they chose. Or, as I say all the time, that patriarchy has impacted everything from the ancient world. And so that we can't really gauge the truthfulness in the stories as they're presented to us sometimes because whereas in more ancient times, we would have seen the goddesses as being much more powerful and keeping the divine masculine more in check, and the stories not being so, as we say, over the top. But patriarchy has impacted everything. So we can't truly gauge or understand the power and the strength and the sovereignty that the divine feminine would have wielded during those times. So here we go. Um, so now we've taken a moment to arrive fully and just to settle down in our bodies a little bit. Okay. And as I was saying, this month is named for the goddess Juno, who was a powerful ancient Roman deity. She was a goddess of sovereignty, of sacred union, and inner authority. She represents not just marriage in the external sense, but the marriage between you and your sacred self, okay? Between your womb and your voice, your rest and your purpose, your spirit and your truth. Juno teaches us that we don't need to be perfect because obviously she allowed herself to be in sacred union with someone who was not faithful to her, even though she was always faithful. But that we need to be present, we need to be sovereign, and we need to be self honoring. She protects women and reminds us that we are not here to be pleasing. We are here to be powerful, wise, and whole. This reminds me of this past weekend. I had the privilege of leading a women's circle along with two of the other women who are authors of our latest book, which is Through the Fire. And it was so thrilling to see women really open, honest, vulnerable, sharing, and supporting one another. And there were very few people in the circle that weren't brought, to feeling emotional at the very least, or maybe even to tears. And I think that is really the power of being in a circle with women, is that if it is a safe space, we are free to open up and to share in ways that we don't normally do. And we can support each other in ways that sometimes we don't normally do either, where we may feel that we are maybe intruding in someone else's life or in their woes, or we may feel like we don't know how to support Sorry about that, folks. We don't know how to support one another in our daily lives. But that's something that really came to me as we were sitting together, that each woman was able to bring out that inner strength, that inner authority within herself to share her story honestly and openly with someone else. And that's really when we talk about, and when I talk about being the head goddess in charge of your own life, this is what I'm really talking about, is to be able to marshal that inner um, strength, authority, and sovereignty to be able to share of oneself and to support others in meaningful ways without that diminishing us in any way. Nobody was diminished by sharing their story, but everybody was strengthened and uplifted by the other women in the circle. And so I really believe this is something else that I'm want to have a better handle on and maybe participate in more as we go forward. Okay. Um, so let's talk a little bit more about where we are on our calendar right now, because today is June 9th. And on June 11th, we're going to have our full moon. And we know that the energies leading up to the full moon are all about increasing. And so we've only got a little window left, right, to be um, increasing as we go forward. So, what we really need to focus on, instead of trying to get more and more and more squeezed into this little time frame, is instead, as we talked about last week, having a bit of a pause and just allowing for whatever is going to come forward to come forward. Okay. And that too is part of being the sovereign of your own life, not always having to be doing or hustling or moving, right? It's about also being able to sit still and find that stillness point. Find that point where both you and your higher self can connect together. So, as I was saying, sometimes power only looks like pushing through or producing or making something or having some kind of result from what you're doing. But the womb, represented by the goddess Juno, teaches us the opposite, that power is cyclical, that power is restorative, that power is knowing when to pause, when to bleed, when to bloom, and when to be still. So if we look at Juno, the goddess of not only of women, but of childbirth and of the womb, and allow our womb to be our inner compass, where we hold our fears, our fire, and sometimes our forgotten dreams. And this is the place where we hold our stories and where we also hold that sovereign creative energy that drives everything that we do and powers our lives. So let me ask you this question. As the moon continues to wax, meaning it continues to get larger, what is something that is increasing in your life that you're ready to let go of? Like you've just had enough. Maybe you just had enough of the stress at your job, or you've just had enough of, maybe bickering with your partner or your spouse. Maybe you've had enough of feeling overwhelmed by all of the things you have to get done as maybe a wife, a mom, or just everyday living because, you know, um, I was saying before how if you keep hearing those pings, it's because my family is having this chat, and they were having a chat because of all of the things that are going on in California right now, and how our outside, our everyday life can be so stress inducing that we can be activated to live in fear rather than abundance, or we get to, really be stressed out by things that we cannot control just ourselves, right? We might be part of the solution, but things that we can't by ourselves control. So we need to take that pause. We need to take that time to release those things that are really weighing heavy in our energy field. And so let's take a minute to just reflect on what we need to release from our energy field right now. So let's drop down our energy into our womb. And imagine that, I should say, put your hands on your womb if you can. And imagine a beautiful, soft lavender light swirling around your womb. It is warm, soothing, and sacred. This is your power center, your radiant womb. And you can ask your womb silently or out loud if you want to. Womb, or if you have a name for your womb, you can call her. What do you want me to release? And womb, what sacred vision do you want me to birth? Because as we know, the full moon is like a fully pregnant woman. Once you get to that certain point, you have to release, as in giving birth. So, what can you release at this time that no longer serves, that no longer is helping you move forward toward your goals? What is something in your life helping you to play it small, or to hide your light under a bushel, or to just not be all of the you that you can be? And that is what we want to release. That is what we wish to release right now. And as the moon continues to wane and get smaller, these issues will get smaller and smaller and smaller until they fade away. If you truly release them, it will fade away. Now say to yourself, I release what no longer serves me. And truly let it go. Don't try to hold on to it, or maybe a little piece of it, or out of fear, you might say, I'm not quite ready to let it go. I release what no longer serves me. I release what no longer serves me. I reclaim the power of my radiance womb. I reclaim the power of my radiance womb. I reclaim the power of my radiant womb. Feel it pulsing beneath your fingertips. And then finally, I am sovereign, sacred, and supported. I am sovereign, sacred, and supported. I am sovereign, sacred, and supported. And so now I thank you for being here, for showing up for your womb, your wisdom, and your womanhood. So let this be a week or a weekend, a couple of days until the full moon of soft rest, a sacred pause to honor what's real and true inside you. You don't have to push, you don't have to prove, you simply have to be radiant, rooted, and ready for what comes next. Thank you for joining me tonight. I just planned for a little short message tonight, but next week, now that I know that I have figured it out, we will have a longer Moonday message together. I thank you so much for joining me and have a wonderful night.